Hi guys. Okay, so bear with me. I'm nannying right now and the kids are playing. So if I have to look away for a second or something, just to make sure that they're still on the swing set. Um, okay, so the book that I decided to read and um, do a little research on, learn more about for this last assignment of the class is The Slave Dancer. I have always been fascinated with um, African American culture and African American history, and so when I saw this book was an option, I'd never read it before, and I was really excited to read it and see what it's about and see why it was banned and what they had to say about that. So, let me pull up the questions so I remember what I'm supposed to be talking about. Okay, a quick summary. I am just going to do this fast. So the Slave Dancer was set in the 1800s, and it's primarily about this little boy named Jesse. He was celebrating with other riverboat workers and his family, and he ends up getting kidnapped. And it's about his. I don't want to give too much away in case you're going to read it, but it was about his journey, like getting kidnapped, getting put on this boat with a bunch of other slaves. How it made him feel, how it affected his outlook on life, what he wanted for his life before getting kidnapped and put into slavery, and what he wanted for his life after that were just drastically different. He faced a lot of trials. He was forced to play the fife because he could play music, so he's forced to play that on the boat so they could dance and stay active. He at first refused, and then after some talking to and torture, he gave in, and in the book it talks about how upset he was about with himself for giving into that, and how it made him feel. So then the boat is on its way to Africa, I believe, and they're by Cuba, and they see another boat coming towards them, and the captain was like, oh crap, like what is going to happen, like worried of what was going to take place. And then it was a boat called the Nicholas Spark, I think, and kids were starting to get thrown overboard, and the ships just passed each other. And it's when they're passing each other that the group realizes that they are sinking. So then Jesse and another enslaved boy use one of the materials off of the boat and float. And they end up floating to shore and being brought back to America by the way the waves were going or whatever. And they ran into this guy in the woods in Mississippi, and he was used to be an enslaved man, and he told them like what to do, what way to walk to get to New Orleans. It's going to take about 3 days, and he could see his family again. And it's in that moment that he realized he no longer wanted to be rich or have any of the things that he had before, but he instead wanted to move to the north and be guaranteed freedom and fight for the things that he went through. This book was challenged because there was a middle school parent who thought that the description of slavery on the boat was too intense and too descriptive, and so they challenged it, and they fought for that to not be allowed. Okay, so both sides of that I can see. One, the book is very, very descriptive. Two, but at the same time, it's also a reality, and I'm a firm believer in not sugarcoating things. Obviously, depending on the level of the student, you need to dim down the intensity of it, but facts are facts, and so I believe challenging this or banning this or whatever is like hiding the fact that it happened, and we need to embrace the fact that it happened and learn from that and teach students what they African Americans went through, and so none of that ever happens again. um I would, if I was the teacher in the classroom that got banned in, I would just explain to the parent where I'm coming from, why I think it's important to read, and then hopefully find an alternative to this book if the parent is that set on his or her child not reading it. I would personally use this book in a middle school setting in a language arts classroom as a um, small group type of discussion setting. It wouldn't necessarily be like um, my. I was thinking about this when I was reading, and I would hopefully have each day read out loud to the class a chapter or two, whatever, and then they would break into their small groups, and then from there discuss um, what was happening, what was taking place, and do activities and projects um, together as a group to one bounce ideas off of each other, see where people agree, disagree, and how to talk through that, but also um, to work together as a team as well. And then, how would you? I, like I mentioned earlier, believe that learning about this is extremely important, so I would have it available in all the settings that I possibly could. And that is The Slave Dancer. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it and learning about it and seeing it from that different perspective. All right, my kids are crying right now, so I gotta go. But have a great rest of your day, guys.